The Muppet Show looked like pure fantasy. A frog running a theater, a pig chasing fame, and whatever Gonzo is shooting himself out of cannons. But underneath all that felt and foam, a lot of what happened on that stage was pulled directly from the real world. Today we're pulling back the curtain on the real events hiding behind the felt, the moments where the Muppet Show stopped being pure fantasy and started quietly documenting the world around it. And by the end, one guest star will use the show to deliver a political message so real that the closing credits forgot to play the theme song. The whole structure of The Muppet Show was a direct response to the real disappearance of vaudeville. By the 1970s, the classic variety show format had been considered dead for decades. Live music, comedy acts, guest performers, chaos backstage, all of it gone. Jim Henson brought it back deliberately. Every single episode follows the same structure as a real vaudeville program from the early 1900s. The desperate host trying to hold everything together, the unreliable acts, the backstage disasters. All of it was lifted straight from the real history of live variety entertainment. The show was filmed at Elstree Studios in the UK, and the Muppet Theatre itself was designed with clear nods to British music hall venues. Henson wasn't looking backward, he was making an argument that the format still worked and that people still needed it. Before we get to the darker case studies, there's one episode that set the template for everything that followed. Season 2, 1978, Elton John. Elton was one of the biggest musicians on the planet, and one of the most polarizing. His flamboyant costumes, his persona, his refusal to look or act like what a rock star was supposed to look like, all of it made him a target. He told the Muppet Show producers that the one thing he did not want to do on the show was wear his famous outfits. The producers did the opposite. They built the entire episode around the tension between self-expression and conformity, and they let a Muppet carry the argument. Sam the Eagle, the show's self-appointed moral authority, declared that Elton bordered on the revolutionary and asked Kermit why he dressed like a stolen car. Kermit pushed back, arguing that great musicians had always been flamboyant dressers, even Mozart. Sam didn't buy it, so they made a bet. Scooter pulled out a painting of Mozart in heels, silk stockings, and a powdered wig. Sam lost, and he was forced to introduce Elton's closing number wearing an outfit just as outrageous as the ones he had been complaining about all episode. Here's the twist. For the final curtain call, the entire Muppet cast came out in flamboyant costumes. Elton walked out in a plain brown suit. The guy who had spent years being criticized for how he looked was the only normal-looking person in the room, and every puppet around him had decided to dress exactly like him. That's not a sketch, that's a statement. If that surprised you, hit subscribe now, because the next 3 episodes go even further. Now into specific moments, and we're going chronologically starting all the way back in Season 1, 1977. By then, horror as a genre was going through a real shift. Jaws had come out in 75, The Exorcist in 73. Horror was moving away from the gothic elegance that Vincent Price had built his entire career on towards something more visceral and more shocking. Price's style, theatrical, darkly comedic, rooted in atmosphere over gore, was already being pushed aside by what was coming next. His episode of The Muppet Show was quietly a farewell to all of that. The whole episode leaned fully into his world of monsters, vampires, haunted houses, and ghosts cracking bad jokes. A 3-headed monster auditioned for Kermit. Behemoth swallowed another Muppet whole during the opening number, but underneath the gags, it celebrated a specific era of horror in a way that felt like one last proper look before it walked out the door for good. What made it work was Price himself. Watch the episode and you can see it. He looks like a kid in a candy store. His brand of horror had always lived somewhere between fear and comedy. On that set, surrounded by monsters made of foam and felt instead of latex and fake blood, he fit right in like he'd always belonged there. Price understood what the show was doing beneath the surface. The Muppets were always commenting on the real entertainment world around them, and his episode was a love letter to a kind of storytelling that the rest of Hollywood had already decided to leave behind. But if Price represented the old guard of entertainment, the next guest star represented everything the old guard was afraid of. Season 3, 1978. And this one might be the most deliberate statement the Muppet Show ever made. In '78, Alice Cooper was controversial. Parents, groups, and religious organizations were actively campaigning against his music. He was being framed as a corrupting influence on American youth. British moral campaigner Mary Whitehouse had actively campaigned against his UK appearances. The Muppet Show's decision to invite him onto a family show was not accidental. By treating Cooper as a legitimate artist rather than a threat, the show pushed back against that cultural panic in the most disarming way possible. Cooper himself said he initially hesitated because he was worried the appearance would undermine the image he had spent years building. But once he found out that Vincent Price had already been a guest, he jumped in. The episode's storyline had Cooper playing an agent of the devil, offering the Muppets fame and fortune in exchange for their souls. That storyline directly mirrored the real accusations being made against him by conservative groups at the time. And the Muppets' total lack of fear toward him was itself the point. Kermit shuddered at the idea and refused. Miss Piggy tried the deal for a while and then decided it wasn't worth the sacrifice, and Gonzo spent most of the episode looking for a pen to sign the contract. Sam the Eagle, the same character who had tried to shut down Elton John, confronted Cooper directly, called him a demented, sick, degenerate, barbaric freako. Cooper thanked him. Sam's response, "Freakos 1, civilization 0. If a frog isn't scared, why are you?" Cooper later said he never had so much fun in his life as that week filming with the Muppets. But there's one more episode on this list, and it's the one that went further than any of them. Season 3, 1979. Harry Belafonte appeared on the show, and it looked like a regular musical episode. It was not. Belafonte was one of the most politically active performers in American history. A close ally of Martin Luther King Jr., he rarely did television at all. When Henson's team invited him, Belafonte said he saw it as an opportunity to do something worthwhile, and he ended up working more closely with Henson on that episode than almost any other guest star in the show's entire run. Most guest stars would just show up and let the Muppet writers shape everything around them. Belafonte wanted to be part of building it. He compiled a tape of songs from different parts of the world and sat down with Henson to pick which one would become the centerpiece of the episode. They chose "Turn the World Around," a song drawn from West African musical traditions, carrying a message about human unity across racial and cultural lines. Belafonte worked closely with the Muppet Workshop to design African mask puppets for this number. Henson was particular about getting the designs right. He didn't want to accidentally choose masks that carried religious or national significance. The episode also featured Belafonte performing Day-O, the Banana Boat song, a song rooted in the real experience of Jamaican dock workers loading fruit onto ships before dawn. He told the audience it was the first time he had ever performed it on television. A song about manual labor sung by a civil rights activist on a show starring puppets. That's the kind of thing that only happens on The Muppet Show. The result became one of the most celebrated moments in the entire show's history. Even the closing credits played differently. No regular theme, just the cast still singing "Turn the World Around" as the names rolled. Years later, Belafonte would perform that same song one more time, at Jim Henson's memorial. The Muppet Show gave him a platform to say something real. It just happened to be disguised as entertainment. And with that, those are the real-world moments hiding inside a show about puppets. A program that looked like pure fantasy turned out to be one of the most honest documents of the 1970s we've got. The politics, the art, and the cultural anxieties of an entire decade, all filtered through felt and foam. So tell us in the comments, which of these surprised you the most? And which real-world moment from the 70s do you think the Muppets were secretly commenting on that we missed? We read every reply. If you want more videos that treat the Muppets like the serious piece of television history they actually are, hit subscribe. We do this every week. I'll see you in the next one.